Good evening, afternoon, and morning, depend upon which part of the world you are watching our show. Welcome to the Jaw Talk Show and Assalamu alaikum from Amir Yusufi and Sayyid Jawad Shah. You can watch our live show on Facebook page and YouTube channel SOT.JAH. Before I welcome to Jawad and Assalamu alaikum to Jawad, I want to say a few words because I am excited today. So team management is quite important in our life. I believe great things in business are never done by one person. They are done by the team of people. Successful people build each other up. They motivate, inspire, and push each other. Unsuccessful people just hate, blame, and complain. Assalamu alaikum, Jawad bhai, kya haal hai? How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam, Amir. Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. And I must say that today's start is marvelous
Yeah,
from what you normally do. Very bookish. Today it is not bookish, Alhamdulillah. Uh,
yeah,
but as you mentioned, team management, it is not only the business, it is the life.
yeah.
You build your team. If you are not a good teammate, you cannot live with your wife. I tell you,
Yeah.
she'll shit the beat out of you.
You
And
are teammate,
similarly with the business,
you are good team member or not member, so you need to do it so people will learn that skill very
I,
quickly.
I am sure that today we both are very excited because we will be
Oh yeah,
learning a lot more today from the very man
yeah,
who has delivered itself. It
yeah,
is more than books and theories. We keep hearing theories, but rarely we see people who deliver those theories, who transform those theories into action. And our guest
yeah,
today is one of them. Let's welcome in the studio Mr. Vinayak.
sure, yeah. So I'm excited today to welcome our guest on the show. He's amazing, and when I'm saying amazing, I mean it. Leaders always make their copies, not hide their practices, and our guest will be sharing his practices with us. I'm going to introduce our honorable guest. He is managing director of Linde, Philippines and Vietnam. He worked in different countries and nowadays he is based in Philippines. And I'm sure we all will learn from today's discussion. Let's welcome him in our show, Mr. Vinayak. Thank you very much for joining us, Vinayak.
Thank you, Amir and Sayed. It's a great privilege for me to be talking on your talk show today, if you will, and I will try to be as candid as possible in trying to share my experiences in a very simple but effective manner, quite matching the concept of effective team management. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So let me ask the first question, Vinay, because Jawad will not allow me. I'm pretty much sure after 5 minutes to talk. So let me ask my first question and then hand over to Jawad. Okay. So my question is really because I have seen you. I have worked in the. We are privileged to work the corporate leaders like you in Linde, and I have seen your team management skill is quite good, and you have managed team in different companies and different countries. How you are able to make a team? For example, if you have the new position, new people, how you will make that team? What steps you are using on that?
All right. So since the question is pretty broad, let me start this concept of team
Yeah,
with a definition of what we believe as team, and then we can get to the challenges in converting a team to an effective team. So, in my sense, gentlemen, team essentially is a group of individuals who are working together to achieve their goal. The members of the group is interdependent with respect to information, resources, knowledge, and skills. And the ultimate objective is to harmonize the outputs of these individual skills and leverage into what you call as a goal. Let me give an example. All of us are familiar with a football team, right? The
yeah,
football team is a team, and this team has an objective to score goals on their opponent. And how do they do it? Well, there could be a captain but you have got a center forward, you've got a left in, you've got a right in, you've got a center back, you've got a left, right back, and a goalkeeper. Now, all these people collectively contribute to what is called as a team effort. So the concept of team is nothing but a set of individuals who are required to collaborate and coordinate to achieve an objective. Now, you asked me the question that what do you do when you reach to forming a team, creating a team, or harnessing output from a team to get to exponential performance levels? Let me try and address that question. Fundamentally, in my sense, when you get in front of a set of individuals, these individuals come with a diverse set of skills, diverse set of wisdom, and diverse set of competencies. Now, a leader in creating a team essentially needs to look at the competencies, skills, wisdom, and experience and provide the right kind of milieu or environment, as they call it, to harness maximum potential as an output from these individuals. What is very fundamental is for us in a team to define what is the goal. Many
Hmm.
times, people fail to define the goal with ample level of clarity, and therefore the success of a team gets damaged at that very primitive stage. Therefore, in my view, if you are to handle a couple of individuals to deliver an objective or an output, the first fundamental step is to define a goal. And once you define the goal, you will allocate the right kind of resources to achieve that goal. And then you'll provide the means and the resources to achieve the goal, which is a complex matter in its own sense.
Hmm.
And largely, while doing so, try and empower, try and delegate, try and decentralize, try and simplify these means, and in finality, have milestones to achieve the objective and goal, measure them at regular
Hmm.
frequencies. The final result may be a success or a failure. Reward and reprimand are the course in today's fast-paced corporate world. At the end of the day, if you follow these logical steps with reasonable sense of empathy, you can convert the cocoon of a set of individuals which will collaborate and coordinate to achieve a sustainable output. That's my definition of team, to be honest.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, wow. Excellent. I would say this answer has too many complexities to understand, and so to say, because from coming from you, it looks very simple. But when I was thinking through it, I thought that each phrase that you mentioned had a lot of planning and required a lot of skills to point it. I will. This actually leads me to another question, and that is when you say a team and management, and as we said, effective team management, isn't it effective a subjective term, or do you think it has some objective parameters into it?
Just
What
to add
is
a bit of
effective?
humor to your question, effective is essentially an adjective, and therefore it is required to personify. It's required to personify a team. So team could be effective or ineffective. Now, coming to what is the definition of an effective team? Well, largely a team that is successful is deemed to be an effective team. And therefore, the entire recipe that goes to define an effective team are those complex attributes that are required to be nurtured consistently through all the set of qualities that leadership provides. Leadership is not something that comes out of reading Stephen Covey or doing a Harvard Business Review. Leadership is all about a number of years of experiences full of setbacks, and every setback that you receive provides you a foundational principle around managing people, because people and human connections ultimately deliver an output. You may have world-class infrastructure, you may have technology, but the enablers of technology and infrastructure are human beings. And human beings come with a complex set of neurological circumstances and positions in their mind, triggering a set of emotions. Therefore, the emotive quality of a leader and the ability to harness emotional attributes of the members of the team, in my sense, define what you call as an effective or ineffective team. That's my answer to your question, if you will, Syed.
Uh, I mean, then Let's build a little more onto it. As you said that uh, the handling of a psychological situation of your teammates. How would you align the different teammates to achieve into an effective objectivity?
Okay. So, in the ecosystem of work culture or personal
Mm,
lives, whether it is
mhm.
family or whether it is a work environment, there are going to be a different set of people, and that's why the kind of music that chirps around in today's corporate world or complex family problems is
Mhm.
all about diversity of thinking. Everybody's
Yes.
thinking is at a different level of superlative nature, and all the people need to make a point. So, in my sense, I believe that the mechanism of addressing an effective team essentially requires you to step back as you
Yes.
embark on the transformational journey. The first step back is a process of reflection in identifying where you culturally fit into the
Ah.
aspirations of the team members, right? So, just to give you a small example, when we in corporate, travel in different countries and, try and look at managing different people from different cultures, there's a lot of learning. You board an aircraft to go to Thailand, you'll probably hear Swati Kap and Kapun Kap, which is essentially
Yes.
the terms for welcome and goodbye. You go to Philippines, you'll hear Mabuhay and Miraming Salamat po. In India, you'll hear Namaste and Dhanyavad. In Pakistan, you probably heard Assalamu alaikum and Shukriya after the word is done. So, these are the kind of,
Sir, I remember only one word, Siggy.
oh, okay, that's a good of you. Fair enough. So, that's really a good point. But where I'm coming from on a serious note is cultures experience uh, are always diverse and complex. Now,
Mm,
the person who can skim through this and get himself related to
mm,
those cultural differences
mm,
can alone manage an effective team. Today we talk about inclusion and diversity, right? So
mm,
when we talk about breaking cultural barriers and try and understand cultural differences, there are
mm,
different business practices, there are different customs that differ from country to country. Some
true.
people believe in being straight and direct, while some people focus on relationships. They will be
Mm,
subtle, they will be reserved in their approach, and that's a matter of giving respect. In Asia,
mm,
respect for each other's individuality is right on top. If you go to continental Europe, they will be very assertive. And a person
mm,
from Asia will find himself culturally misfit in trying to manage a team in Europe and vice versa. Because the Europeans will feel that why are these Asians haggling? Right? They never
mm.
they never seem to come to a point. They move in a ball
Yes.
mill round and round. So culture
Mm,
has got a lot of things to do. In some parts of the world, to come to a meeting or have a meeting run over on time schedule or show up late on a meeting is also an accepted culture. Globally,
yes.
we recognize time is money and it's good to best follow that. But a
Yes.
multicultural team depicts diversity like
Mm,
age, gender,
mm,
ethnicity, profession,
mm,
organization, religion, socio-economic backgrounds, sexual orientation. There are a number of things that can, can come up, and the way the response will come from your team members to the goal and objective that you desire them to react to will be significantly different. So, in very simple words, it is essential to recognize that cultural differences and skill sets and experience differences will emerge. And for us to have an effective output, collaboration, coordination, thriving on weaknesses, capitalizing on strengths would possibly be a well-known conventional recipe to start.
So,
oh,
if you allow me, one question is come in mind, Jawad, sorry. So, in the team, if I will talk about on the ground reality, there are different team player we have always. One, the person is very good and they are performing very well, but other person who is thinking I am very good, but maybe he is not good for the team and he cannot work properly. How you will balance their emotions? Because if you are saying something straightforward or you're not doing good, so maybe in the next day he will not be working on that level and he cannot be motivated on that. So what you suggest to us, how you need to be manage these two different type of sect of people?
Okay, again, I recollect a very prominent comment from Sir Abraham Lincoln, which
Mm,
said that I don't like that person. I possibly need to know him better. Right.
Mm,
Now, this kind of statement is very impactful, and I got kind of impressed with this concept that when you're working in different kind of teams as a team member or leader, there is
mm.
ample level of toxicity that exists. Because the
Yes.
mm,
reality of the matter on the ground is you are going to be successful at the cost of somebody's not being as successful. And
Yes.
this human craving of trying to be perceived as relatively a star performer as compared to the others is a common fact that we see in organizational dynamics. In my view and my experience, it's a good idea to not overplay or underplay such kind of toxic people, because
Mm,
mm,
the toxicity generated by these people exemplifying high performance,
mm,
if underplayed, will affect the output, and if overplayed, spoil the team spirit. There's a very
mm,
thin line of difference between assertion and lack of humility.
mm,
As long as the culture of toxic people in the team are remaining humble and they are aligned to the sense of purpose and have the capability to carry team members together to attain the final objective in a sustainable manner, it is good. But the moment we see toxic culture, toxic people on the ground with a perspective of getting recognized as a star performer ahead of time,
mm.
is a situation to be alarmed with, to be dealt with ample caution. And there are different mechanics and steps to handle this as well, to be honest, Amir.
mm. Yeah.
I will put a little kind of a same question, but in a different shade. Uh, as you said that managing a multicultural team or diversity requires a lot of empathy. You mentioned in earlier discussion. Uh, but then, as Amir said, then we have a team players which require certain assertion so that they can do to achieve a goal, a common goal that a company or corporate would have. So how to balance that situation? Because you cannot be very much, so to say, a leader or empathize, because everyone will have a situation to empathize with. Uh, but then you need to be an assertive in a certain way. So
Oh,
how to balance this?
so that's a unique dilemma, to be honest, and a very good question, Syed. In my view, in human psychology and assessment of such kind of delicate balances, there is a pathological mismatch. And this pathological mismatch is connected to the word called intuition, right? So we tend to be intuitive, and most people around the globe believe that their intuition is very strong, right?
Mm,
But the
mm,
reality of the matter is they perceive themselves to be intuitive, and in the quest, tend to not attain this excellence of balancing. I'll give you an
mm,
example. I
sure.
may perceive myself to be a person having a high sense of humor, right?
Mm,
That's what I believe, and most people proudly say that I've got a high sense of humor. But globally, statistics has revealed that less than 10% of population Earth actually is funny, right? So, in my sense, this ability to strike balance between what people are actually trying to do and how we can regulate such kind of emotive exuberances in a conversation or managing a team comes to the point of a difference between leader and boss.
uh-huh.
So when you look at this concept and the ability, intrinsic nature of a person to have this coveted position of being a leader, my thoughts are very simple. We as human beings tend to get influenced by charismatic leaders, right? People who have got a unique sense of oratory capability to keep an audience spellbound in telling their story. And they do then believe that their story is so well heard, and the charisma is a unique personality trait which allows them to be a leader. The reality is, charisma, narcissism, or me loving are not any kind of traits that a leader should be having with him, because if the moment he has it, he himself will nurture a culture of toxicity, creating these star performers who are so-called damagers to the team than to, fix them at the right time. Competence and confidence are very, very easily misunderstood.
Okay.
Many people feel that confident people are competent people. The reality is, this is a myth, because competency is fundamental to leadership. The ability to handle emotive, interconnective deluges of people's mindsets and yet keep them tracked on the objective on which you have domain expertise is essential. Therefore, I personally believe, as an answer to your question, that if you are a leader and you are humble, you are having wisdom and experience to tackle a complex objective, personal or professional, then it is indeed your capability to identify people and recognize the difference between a toxic response to assertion. That's my answer to your question, if you will.
Amir, if you allow me, because
You
Mr.
are
Vinayak,
always allowed. Yeah.
thank you. It's my privilege. Uh, Mr. Mr. Vinayak, you have put a strong responsibility on a leader, so to say, in your conversations. You have given him a lot more to do, not only in terms of his technical competence, but the psychological competence and the people management. And then it leads me to ask that from the different leadership styles, what you think would work best, or how should he or anyone in a leadership position would choose that which leadership model should he choose to adopt in a certain situation?
Okay. So, if you Google leadership, you'll get millions of responses, right? Now,
Mhm.
I'm going to be candid in telling my personal view around it. For centuries, there
Yeah.
have been explosion of leadership theories, right? And the essence of leadership goes back to centuries. And the leadership styles, leadership models goes back. There have been great successes. There have been monumental failures as well. Now, I'm going to base my answer based on a set of more of monumental failures that I had in order to define and develop, my own leadership model, if you will. So, in my
Mhm.
sense, there is no fixed leadership model. Leadership model is dynamic. It is as if you are showing a response to an external stimulus, and the external stimulus is your team members. In leadership, you can have authoritative leadership, you can have democratic leadership. None of them work effectively in all solutions or situations.
Mm.
So, leadership
True.
is called situational.
Mm. Mm.
Situational humility, curiosity, and the ability to adapt
Mm.
to the changing circumstances provides a unique model, which is your own personality trait and leadership style. And if you get success out of it, you might want to nurture it. If you don't get as much as success, you might want to adapt and change. So that's my way of defining a leadership model, and an absolutely fit for all solution on leadership truly doesn't exist. There is crisis to which a leader responds differently. There is a normal situation to which a leadership responds differently. So obviously, his leadership style sometimes has to be that of a caring father,
Mm.
sometimes roll his sleeves and be a part of the force on the front line, exemplify visible leadership, and demonstrate to the team members that he's one of them, not extraordinary.
So
But
that
Mr. Vinayak,
that
Amir, it's very interesting.
okay.
Mr. Vinayak, I'm sorry, I take a lot of time from Amir, but he's kind enough.
No problem.
Just, just a little silly question. I mean, the leader himself is a human being, and he would have a weak moments. He would have emotional attacks. He would have a lot of psychological situations himself. Don't you think that the kind of leader you portray needs to be a very perfect human being without an emotion, without this? I mean, needs to be very precise in, and his analysis needs to be a very to the perfection level.
Again, we are all human beings as leaders. So to answer this question, I will just take you back to another concept which I kind of learned quite early in life through a book which was written by Abdul Kalam, who is the erstwhile president of India. He's titled a book called Unleashing Human Minds, right?
Okay.
So in that book, he has stated that the human genotype
Mhm.
millions of years back was living in caves, and he used to go in search of food, clothing, and shelter with the most primitive weapons, right? Same human being.
Mhm.
And then millions of years later, he metamorphized or he evolved to be the human being of today who possibly
Mhm.
sets foot on Mars and can combat any kind of challenges of issues that a human being faces. So, my personal concept is that the human mind is having unlimited potential and can be unleashed to harness to the next level. Now, relating this concept to a human being a human being, and how can he be a perfect person? Well, the reality is perfection itself is hypothetical, and perfection is perceived to be perfect by one beholder and can be perceived as imperfect by another beholder. So the reality is the emotive trait of soothing calmness, humility, the ability to take a step back whilst reacting
Mhm.
to any complex situation enables a leader to be as profound as possible. Now, this is again not something that can just come by a tick mark or some years of experience. It only comes through the feedbacks that you get from your teammates,
Mm.
whether they consider you to be an effective human being in the ability to tackle situations with profound calmness, because any kind of decisions that are taken in a sense of emergency or crisis might not be sustainable and effective for the team in general.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, let me ask the question before Jawad put his own question. Okay. So let's take this team management as you mentioned very clearly. As a leader, you need to change sometime his style, and one of the example is the crisis, because the COVID-19 have not seen anyone. Okay. So, but in this situation, in the crisis situations, how the leader yourself, I can ask from yourself directly, how you motivate yourself first, because the motivation of the team, I'm coming on that side other time, but how the leader have motivate himself, because he cannot see that vision, whatever happen in next month or next year or something, maybe there is no tunnels at the other side. How you need to maintain your motivation at that time?
Okay, so COVID-19 is again a very unique situation, and
Yeah,
COVID-19 is called as a novel coronavirus, right? So
yeah,
anything that is novel or new tends to provide you with a set of new experiences, enabling further unleashing of the potential of the human being. And that was my practical experience in the last 13, 14 months, if you will, starting December of 2019. COVID came with a unique set of challenges, and this pandemic is not new. Pandemics are not new to the universe. Pandemic is not new to the population. So if you look at all the earlier respiratory syndromes that affected the planet Earth, like the Mars, or the SARS and so on and so forth, and
mm,
other such viruses, they were also there. But this particular virus came with a unique set, and that's why it's called novel. And this unique set is important to mention this perspective before I answer your question. That there are 7 coronaviruses already existing in planet Earth, and this was the next one, and that's why it's called as a novel coronavirus. And effectively, the coronavirus acts with RNA multiplication and not DNA multiplication. So the earlier COVIDs worked on DNA, this works on RNA, and therefore, apart from animal to human, they have a huge level of spread potential from human to human at a very accelerated pace. So the world was hit with this kind of pandemic jurisdiction, if you will, and various global entities, organizations, population, 7 billion population on the planet Earth was left to a extreme degree of uncertainty, and to my belief, even now,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
what is my level of learning from there, and where do I manage to keep myself motivated to combat? So I was kind of stuck in Manila and Philippines, arising out of the various travel restrictions and so on and so forth for the past 13 months, and for various rules and regulations of isolation and other such kind of preventive measures that were required out of the uh, directives coming in from the task force in the country, I was, kind of required to live within Manila and Philippines, not being able to travel outside the city. Now, this is the first experience of its kind that I actually encountered, and it did evolve me mentally and psychologically to quite a significant extent. And all my earlier primitive definitions of tenacity and resilience came to the next level. See, human beings have this unique ability to adapt to any kind of situation. When you're left to such a kind of scene where you have everything in the world that you can influence and buy, but cannot do anything about it, the definition of reaction and responses to such kind of pandemic changes, and it also redefines, repersonifies, recreates your personalities to the extent that you can develop an immune system, a psychological immune system, to yourself first remain motivated to be healthy enough to combat. And I'm not talking
Yeah.
about physical health, but mental health. And then you allow various mitigation actions or preventive measures, if you will. So the way I looked at it is, how do I get motivated? Motivation is again an emotional syndrome, and motivation is all quite intrinsic, to be honest, but very often influenced by extrinsic factors as well. To get up
Mm.
every day in the morning, regardless of the outcome that is likely to be facing you, with a smiling face, and combat the day of today with ample amount of exuberance, such that you can say that I had my best version today, is my definition of self-motivation.
Mm.
And regardless of the challenges that come and face me, or the way I look at it is, it's very important. Somebody in my family told me very early on that remaining positive in life is something that I had to learn, because I have this unique set of thinking which allows me to always look at the negative aspect of what's unlikely to happen rather than looking at what is likely to happen. So this
Yeah.
whole process of evolution through that member in the family who told me that remaining positive in life despite the challenges is important came to actual live acid test in this period. So what I did, Amir, is, whilst the whole organization of 245 people was allowed to operate from home
Yeah.
every day, right from day one, I have made it a point to go to office, not because of anything else, but I found that this level of visible leadership to hold the reins
Wow.
of the organization might possibly motivate others, because everybody's levels of motivations and priorities and concerns about themselves and their loved ones about combating the virus in those times was
Mm.
pretty difficult, to be honest. Today, 11, 12 months down the line, when we hear developments going on vaccination and so on and so forth, we have got a reasonable level of hope, if you will, to recognize that things will come back to normal. Therefore, hand-holding the team in such kind of, bio risk to humanity
Mm.
itself. What are we here for? In Hindi, they say, "Jaan hai to jahan hai," right? So if you're not
Yes.
having your
Mm.
own life, and
Yeah.
you're not able to take care of the anxieties of the life of your employees and their families at large, then what
Yeah.
will you deliver in business? So that's where my personal stuff of motivation came in play. And we did have a very successful transition of transformation in combating this pandemic in this country here. And this is a part of the developing world, even here as well as in Vietnam. And with all kind of efforts that have been taken with ample sustainability, we are better than where we were earlier. And hopefully, by the grace of God, the vaccination will prove effective, and the populations will see a better way going
Hopefully.
forward.
Inshallah. Great.
By the way, I must say it is very inspiring that what you just
Yeah.
mentioned for self motivation and keeping challenge to oneself is the most difficult thing, because normally kind of a person I am, I would lie back and relax rather put challenge on myself. But thank you. This is an excellent important. So one more thing that I just want to divert a conversation into is another adjective, so to say, is the efficiency. How the effectiveness and efficiency are correlated? Are they independent? How would you define these two? And coming from the project management style, it says that one costs other and other costs the other. So how would you relate it?
So let me give you an example purely from the business angle, right? I mean, efficiency and effectiveness, these are the two paradigms that you want to have clarity on. Where do they overlap to each other and where they appear distinctively different? The best way to understand this is, the output of business, which is reflected through the P&L statement, right? So any business that is being done is kind of reflecting a profit and loss. So let's presume for a moment that the objective of a business is to attain profits and sustain the profits and grow the profits. So efficiency of managing the parameters that influence the profit can only be done by a set of effective individuals. And they can be effective only provided they know the recipes and the actions that need to be taken. So there is a distinct overlap between efficiency and effectiveness, but they complement each other in one but a number of ways. You can have a team which is efficient and be ineffective as well. And the example for such a kind of situation where you've got a highly efficient team but ineffective is when the team is distorted with a toxic culture where the collaboration and coordination is meant only for individual silo performances than the common team attribute. In that situation, although you may have a very efficient set of people, the effect will be nullified and vice versa.
Okay, so let me, Jawad, if you allow me, let me take the question from audience. So he's asking some opinion from one negative person in team can damage the whole environment, especially your team leader. So he's saying worst ever I think faced. So in this situation, what they need to do? Is there any? Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on whether you're a team member or leader. And to be honest, if you're a team member, it's quite a difficult situation to combat with. But toxicity can prevail at the top, and toxicity can also prevail within the team members. Now, my suggestion in such a kind of situation, or for both the situations, ideally would be to seek feedback. Because feedback is a very effective mechanism to understand the degree of acceptability as a team member or a leader that you carry amongst your peers or your superiors. Feedback is a very powerful mechanism, and once you get that, you might be able to change yourself. Now, you'll ask the question, well, this is for the other person. What about me? Because I'm suffering, right? Because I'm a victim to a toxic culture. Now, the best way that this can be sustained is do not react. Remain definitive and objective to your purpose in that goal. Consistently keep on doing and elevating your performance for your personal contribution. See, today's organizations are matrix. Essentially, the output of one person and department is linked to as an input to the next person and department, and cohesively, a collaborated output will result to a final, achievement. Therefore, if you are doing the right things and you are being subjected or victimized, if you will, in a politicized or backstabbing, such kind of toxic boss or such kind of toxic peer, just sit back for a while. Do not react. Keep on doing what you need to do. And obviously, after a particular period of time, if you still feel that you're unable to influence toxicity beyond the point of imaginative bearing, then a good idea is to ship yourself out of that toxic work environment rather than expecting somebody else to shape out. But what human beings do is they tend to get reactive. They tend to devise counter strategies on a very anecdotal basis to combat such kind of problems and people and situations, and the end result is generally disastrous. That's my answer to your question.
That's perfect. But the feedback which you have already talked about, it's not our today topic, but it's briefly, if you can let us know about the feedback, because this is also one of the art, the giving the feedback, and especially from the accepting the feedback. So I'm on the other side, accepting the feedback, because most of the people are watching this show. So this is very difficult sometimes to accept the right feedback. Okay, whenever someone is a friend or as a team leader, when someone is giving the feedback to the subordinate or team member, they will be sometimes defensive first. So how to take the good feedback? What are the recipe, or you can say that what are the secret how to take the good feedback and implement on the improvement?
So, I mean, you've touched on a very valid point of, the responses, reaction that one tends to exhibit when he gets defensive.
Yeah.
Whenever a person gets defensive, he loses the articulate ability of cognitive thinking, and that results into decisions which are generally proven to be not in the interest of the individual himself, leave alone the organization. Therefore, the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask me this question about receiving and taking feedbacks, it relates me to yet another, small anecdote which I'd like to relate over here. This comes from very popular Zen stories, Chinese mythological management book called Zen. I'd encourage young people on this call to read it at some point in time. It's available as a bestseller on Amazon as well. There's a story which says that there is a learned teacher and he
Mm,
has got a set of disciples. And one
mm,
disciple amongst these disciples perceives himself to be extremely smart and intelligent and gets an ego in his mind and he says, "Hey, I know everything that the master knows. What is it more that the master can now give to me?" And with that kind of ego, he goes in front of the master and tells, "Master,
mm,
I've got a question for you." And the master, with all his wisdom and the ability to see through his disciple, recognizes the anxiety and the dilemma that his student is carrying in his mind. So he
mm,
says, "Young lad, sit in front of me," and he gets him a cup and saucer and offers him tea.
mm,
And then the master keeps on pouring the tea inside the cup. The student is seeing. The cup gets to the tea gets filled up to the brim of the cup, and then the tea starts overflowing down.
mm,
The student or the disciple is aghast. He says, "What the hell is this master doing?"
mm,
And he simply goes and tells the master, "Master, my cup is full."
mm.
And the master then tells him, "That's your answer, young lad. Your cup is full."
Wow.
So
Mm,
if you're not able to proliferate the innate concept that life is all about learning and experiences and have the ability to receive knowledge, wisdom, and feedback, the ability to apply that in real life and become successful and satisfied will always remain far. So
oh,
one
great.
has to develop this habit of seeking feedback with all modesty and humility from anybody who is your peer, reportee, or manager, wife, husband, or child. That maturity of receiving feedback with all humbleness and trying to act on the wrong things that have been told to you or done by you, because you will always perceive yourself to be super uno, right? The reality is you're not.
Mm,
So that is my way of generating and training your mind to be modest and humble enough to seek feedback. Those people who have this capability to seek feedback in a positive manner alone have got a higher chance of leading a fulfilled life professionally or personally than the latter.
yeah, perfect. Okay, so Razinikvi is, I think, he's very engaging in this show. So he's asking, how can we train our children to teamwork? Maybe it's irrelevant, but it's a good chance to discuss it here because you are really definitely situation so professional, defining situation so professional. If you want to take this question, yeah,
It's a completely different aspect of look
yeah,
out from a leadership perspective, and family
yeah,
definitely is a team in its own right, but not a real team because it's more of a group of individuals which are committed to some foundational and core values. So
yeah,
for children to be inducted on collaboration, coordination, assertion, and the skills that are required to generate innovation or inspiring qualities, the ability to think that it's important that life dwells on goodwill and life doesn't dwell on authority. At a very nascent stage, whilst you're putting those traditional values onto your children, can best be exemplified by you as parents. Children are very
mm,
nimble. Children are immaturely reacting and reflecting and trying to evolve themselves based on the surroundings. If you are going to
yeah,
reflect a toxic culture, if you're
mm,
going to expose the children to a toxic culture. Toxicity exists everywhere. The ability to receive toxicity at a very young age and be able to maturely define it in relation to the core or traditional values that you have will probably inspire enthusiasm and allow them to be their best in terms of giving credit to parents to upbring the children. So my way of looking at things is there is always a relationship between our professional lives and personal lives. You may fail somewhere, you may succeed somewhere, you may fail both the ways around, but never ever leave the opportunity to learn from what has not happened good enough and inculcate a positive mindset in the children to ensure that life is all about fulfillment. Life is a God-gifted message onto us to ensure that we fulfill it. And in doing so, whilst you're learning, whilst you're failing and succeeding, the traditional core values and the foundations would play a very important role. So the parents essentially, if they can exemplify through visible leadership, consistently correlating core traditional values to children whilst they're getting exposed to brutal corporate world or the ecosystem of individuals where toxicity thrives at a much higher degree as compared to the four walls of the comfort of the mom and the dad. I think that is what I put as a response to the question.
That's great. Thank you very much, Razi, for asking the question, and we have the chance to have this answer. Yeah, thank you for asking the question. Yes, Javad, you are asking some question. I think the network have issue. Cannot hear you, Javad. Try again. Okay, so let me, when Javad is fixed the issue, let me ask the question, sir. So what do you suggest the young people who is watching our show in the end? What is your suggestion from the younger age, for example, after the teen ages when they have reading the books or in the college or university, how they can develop this leadership in their on style, and how they can bring up this leadership with their when they are growing age?
I'll give a very simple message over here rather than complicating through management jargons. For the children, the graduates, undergraduates of today, they are freshly nurtured with their graduation courses, whether engineering or management or medicine, arts, commerce, whatever faculty of education that they are pursuing.
Yeah.
They are fresh talent, and they all have got an aspiration and ambition to succeed in life, and they would like to succeed fast enough. And for that, they need to develop the so-called quality of a leader. The first message is that you are unlikely to be a leader soon enough as you expect. Leadership is built out of a set of experiences more nurtured by setbacks than successes.
Yeah.
Therefore, allow yourself to experience those years as you put into application the knowledge that you've attained in your academic courses. So for the youngsters, my suggestion is bear the characteristics of the ability to work hard, work consistently, work sincerely. Success will come. For some people, success will come soon. For some people, success will come later. But as long as you are consistently putting blood, sweat, tears, and efforts in the direction of the job that has been allotted to you, personal or professional, you will succeed. Again, mark my words. Those who have dragged the ocean of knowledge and are incapable of applying the knowledge with ample level of humility will never ever attain leadership. Leadership is not about charisma. Leadership is a complex ensemble, an end result of competence and empathy. And people who understand this early enough will tend to reach to this success and be more fulfilled human beings and professionals and family members going forward, is my experience.
That's great. It's a great message. No, I can't hear you, Javad. I'm so sorry that. I know you are passionate to ask the question and comment and feedback at the end. Normally, Javad closing the show and his last word of the closing show was people was very like him, but unfortunately today his internet issue is creating the problem for not to be closing this show. So I need to close this show. Thank you very much, sir. When I'm seriously, I'm not using the words because of the end of the show. I need to praise you. I really enjoyed, and I'm sure Jawad has also enjoyed, and our audience who are watching our show, and they are very engaged, and they are very impressed, and they have learned a lot of things. And thank you very much to coming on our show. I'm pretty much sure we will request you again on any other topic, and you will be with us. I think Jawad came back with the good internet. Yes, Jawad.
I have two ways to say. Either I blame Amir to stream out my internet to reduce my bandwidth, or I
I
can
told
just
you, sir, I told you, unsuccessful people always blame, complain. Sorry for that.
I knew, I knew this was coming. Mr. Vinayak, I missed a few portions, but I'm gonna watch this again. There's one more thing that I just want a couple of more minutes from you, and then uh, I'll be saying the things that Amir wants me to say. Uh, sir, as you mentioned earlier, that there are people in your team who portray to be, I mean, who are overconfident in terms that they portray that they do things more efficiently, more effectively. They are overachievers and this and that. And you said you need to, this is a toxic situation and you need to spot and then dealt well. You were quite strong when you mentioned this. How, as a performer perspective, one should evaluate one's own self, that either I am a confident or I am an overconfident. There's a fine thin line. How would you define
Okay, so let me again come back to the fundamentals of this confidence because there's again an overlap between the word confidence and overconfidence. And to be honest, there's a very thin line. In my sense, when ego takes over humility, you tend to tip over from confidence to overconfidence.
Yeah.
Uh, it's always good to celebrate success. It's always good to take credit of a well-deserved task achieved. But if that can be done with a high degree of humility, humbleness, and recognizing as a cohesive output of the team, would mean that you're reflecting confidence, which will be a kind of quality that will be respected by your peers and by your people with whom you're engaging in and around. They will call you to be an influential, a role model, a visible leader. However, the moment your ego takes over this thin line and then you start considering that you are the guy, you are the only one, you are the ultimate, you are the person who's done this, without you this could not have happened. Well, nothing in this world, Syed, in my view, is indispensable. Everything in this world is replaceable, whether it's a human being, infrastructure, asset, or combat of any kind of complex situation. So
Very good point.
the the confidence and overconfidence overlaps with a very thin line when ego takes over personality. And that's what we should try to continuously calibrate and correct ourselves, is what I sense.
very,
Perfect.
very candid? I mean, I would say very candid. Uh, I guess this would make a one to think to I mean, transit from the me to us, from a
Mm.
solo to a team member. I mean, this
Yeah.
the ego, the elimination of an ego or stopping where the ego points in or kicks in would be. Mr. Vinayak, from the core of my heart, I would say thank you very much. This has been one of the wonderful sessions that I have attained, be it on the SOT or be it in the training sessions or any corporate event that we lead. This is one of the best sessions. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for being very candid. And thank you very much for being very open in discussing the ideas. I admire one more thing when I come to know about you, when I heard this was my idea to Amir, whether Amir accepts it or not. When I saw your Facebook page and when I saw your LinkedIn profile, that it is an inspiring story itself, and a story of a diversity and inclusion that that a man from South Asian diaspora goes and leads a countries which have a different language, which has a different culture, which has altogether a different set of norms. This is an inspiring story, and more power to you. And thank you very much for our, for your time that you took us and for your information that you shared. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Syed and Amir, and all the entire audience who've been patiently listening to my candid comments. I think I'll just end my note by saying that my experience here in the Philippines is that Philippines for me is an extended family already. This is the magic that works. The fabric of our own self evolves, and then you create a larger clothing of cultural ethnicity and wider acceptance. So, being here in Philippines or in Vietnam, I've generated a high level of appreciation of the culture. I've generated good level of friends, and I presume and believe that my peers and colleagues are in equal respect and awe of my emotion. And this extended family continues to bless me as I blossom the business here in Philippines and Vietnam. Shabak Khair, and thank you very much for your time. Deeply honored and privileged to be on this show. And if time permits and destiny accords, we will catch up once again on some other interesting topic. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Dhanyavad for joining us today. It is excellent evening. I hope you have a good weekend, and I hope
Thank you.
Corona soon. All the viewers that are watching us today, thank you very much, and those who will watch later our recorded show, thank you in advance. Please do subscribe if you think that the contents we bring are valuable for you or it adds value to you. Please do also share if you think it will add value to people's life. Me, Amir, and when Mr. Vinayak says goodbye, thank you very much. Shabakhair and
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.